Shalom. First and foremost, call halal yamla, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Hara Chakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone, from whom I learned the truth from. And also peace and salutation to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And the title of this video is going to be Plan B is Plan A. Alright. And, in this ministry, this great awakening of, the true Israelites in these latter days, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, within this ministry, this great awakening of us Israelites, especially those of us that are of the hopeful elect, the remnant, as the title of this lesson goes again, Plan B is Plan A, and ultimately, what is the Plan A of this ministry, this great awakening, salvation. Salvation is the Plan A, as it speaks of in the book of First Peter. First Peter 1 and verse 9, it says, receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls. Receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls. Because as we the hopeful elect, through this truth in this ministry and this great awakening, as we're building up ourselves more and more on our most holy faith in these latter days, is all for the purpose of what? Receiving salvation. Let's see, let's read this in the NLT. First Peter 1 verse 9 in the NLT. The reward for trusting him, who's the him? Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai, will be the salvation of your souls. See that? And, as Yahweh Shai spoke of in Revelation 22, behold, I come quickly, to give every man a reward according to his works, roughly paraphrasing it. Well, hey, we the hopeful elect, the reward that we're seeking is just as it read again right here. The reward for trusting him will be the salvation of your souls. The reward that we seek is salvation. And that's our plan A. With no plan B, no plan C, no plan D. Because plan B, is just plan A. Sticking to what's a plan A. Striving for salvation. It says in the AMP, First Peter 1 verse 9 in the AMP, the AMP Bible, it says, receiving as the result, the outcome, the consummation of your faith, the salvation of your souls. So, that's the end all be all goal of this ministry, this great awakening, to receive salvation, the salvation of the elect. That is the plan A right there. You see that? And we know, in order to ultimately, receive the salvation of our souls, it's gonna have to come with us going through the straight gate. The straight narrow path that Yahweh Shai commanded us to go through. Going through the straight gate. All the hell and the tribulations and the sufferings. The long sufferings and the things that we're commanded to endure to the end in his ministry. This is all our rite of passage to receive salvation, to receive the kingdom. Being tempted with taking a charagma, but standing stiffly for the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai and his truth, not bowing the knee, not taking the charagma, being faithful unto death. That's our rite of passage within the straight gate that we walk through to receive salvation. To stick to plan A. Let's get Matthew chapter 7 and verse 13. This is Yahweh Shai speaking. He says, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. So this is Yahweh Shai pretty much giving us a straight up commandment right here. enter ye in at the straight gate. Okay, go through the straight gate. See that? And this word straight. This word straight is Strong's G4728. Stenos, and it means narrow, straight. Okay. Let's see what the root word says. All right.
Strong's G2476. Histemi.
And it means okay, to stand, set in place. All right, but pretty much, the word straight, when you go deep into it, STRAIT, straight, it ultimately goes into a position of difficulty, okay? A troublesome position. As a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's look up the word straight in the Etam Online. All right, so this is the word straight from Etam Online. It means a narrow, confined space or place, especially narrow paths or passages between hills. All right, then it goes into in reference to a narrow passage of water connecting two larger bodies. All right, and it goes further into narrow passages of water. All right. And then a little bit further down, it goes into often in plural, straits. And it means the sense of difficulty, plight. All right. So to be in a straight position, all right, STRAIT, straits. Okay. To go through, straits, it ultimately means what? To go through a position of difficulty, a difficult situation. All right. A troublesome situation, to go through afflictions, sufferings, all right? And that comes with the territory of, serving Yahweh Shema Shai. Even like it speaks of in Sirach 2 verse 1 on down, my son, if thou comest to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation, and constantly endure, roughly paraphrasing, because to get to the kingdom of heaven and receive salvation and all these things that the Lord promised us, the Lord's not going to give it to us for free. Okay, no, He's going to make us earn it. Okay, by, testing our faith, testing our integrity. Okay, testing to see if we're going to be faithful unto the end. All right, testing us by using Esau to tempt us with that charagma to see if we're gonna stand stiffly for the name of the Lord or bow the knee. Okay, these are the things that we're gonna be tested with, right, down the straight narrow path. Okay, the straight gate that we walk through to ultimately get to the kingdom. You see that, to ultimately receive the salvation of our souls. All right. So going back to Matthew 7:13 again, Yahushua is speaking. He says, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Yeah, because many of our people that know that they're Israelites in these latter days, they're going to try to receive the salvation of their souls and enter into the kingdom some other way, okay, by seeking a plan B or a plan C or a plan D. Okay, many of our people that know that they're Israelites, that's not rooted in prophecy, that's not being built up on that most holy faith, okay, that's not redeeming the times and measuring the time diligently, all right, and taking this great awakening, this ministry serious. Okay, those of our people that know that they're Israelites, that's in this mindset, all right, that's in this mindset, they're going to be trying to seek the kingdom of heaven and seeking salvation by going through the wide gate, the less difficult gate. You see that? The less tempting gate. You see that? They're going to try to, receive salvation through a plan B or a plan C or a plan D. All right. But Yahushua, it's telling us right here, the only way to get to the kingdom and receive salvation is to go through the straight gate, which is the plan A. You see that? That's the path of plan A, the straight gate. Okay. Jacob's trouble, persecution. All right. The hour of temptation. See that? Being cast into prison, being beheaded, having to be faithful even unto death. All right, all these things come with going down that straight gate to receive the salvation of our souls. See that? And this is verse 14, Yahushua speaking, Matthew 7, verse 14, because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Yeah, and it's only the remnant, the elect, that's going to find this straight gate. Okay, the true way. The plan A. See that? Because only the elect are going to understand that the straight gate and the narrow way is the only way to life. Okay, life eternal. The only way to salvation, the only way to the kingdom. See that? Because the elect are not going to be seeking a plan B or a plan C or a plan D to get to the kingdom. Okay, the elect are going to be made to understand that there's only a plan A. All right, and that's the only way to go. So let me get this. This is John, the book of John, chapter 6 and verse 67. It says, Then said Yahushua unto the 12, Will ye also go away? Verse 68. It says, Then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life, and we believe and are sure that thou art that anointed, all right, Hamashiach, the Son of the living power, Yahweh. Okay? So when Yahushua asked the disciples, a question, basically, y'all gonna leave me too? Because pretty much when you read in this account, Yahushua said, made a statement that offended many, many that followed him, and as it, pretty much as it goes into in this account, many of those that followed Yahushua, when Yahushua made a particular statement that offended them, they pretty much followed Yahushua no more. Okay, they turned back from him. And then so again in verse 67, Yahushua asked the 12 disciples, basically, are y'all going to go away too? But then Peter, standing boldly and faithfully said what? In verse 68 again. Then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life. See that? Because our beloved forefather, the Apostle Peter, and the rest of the disciples who turned apostles, okay, minus Judas Iscariot, they understood that there was no plan B. Okay, only the plan A. Okay, to receive salvation and get to the kingdom. Okay, and that's going through the straight gate. Okay, by following the Lamb Yahushua whithersoever he goeth. You see that? Following Yahushua through the straight gate, the straight narrow path. Okay, through all the sufferings and afflictions and the hell that we catch, going through the straight gate. Okay, the only way we can endure through it and make it through it is through following Yahushua. Okay, because like the Apostle Paul said in I believe that's Philippians the 4th chapter, I can do all things through a Mashiach who strengthens me. You see that? We can, the only way we can have the strength to make it through the straight gate, okay, to fulfill plan A, to succeed plan A, is through belief in the Mashiach Yahushua. Just as the Apostle Peter and the rest of the apostles are confessing right here in this particular account in John the 6th chapter. See that? So even the Apostle Peter, and our forefathers, the rest of the apostles understood that there was no plan B. Okay, that there's nowhere else we can go to receive the words of eternal life. All right, it's only through plan A, Yahweh Shemel Shai, and going through the straight gate. See that? And let's get Romans chapter 8 and verse 16. It says, "The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh Shemel Shai." Verse 17, "And if children, then heirs, heirs of Yahweh, and joint heirs with Hamashiach Yahushai, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together." All right, and let's read verse 17 in the NLT. It says, Romans 8 verse 17 in the NLT. It says, "And since we are his children, and we are his heirs, in fact, together with Hamashiach, we are heirs of the Most High Yahweh's glory. But if we are to share his glory, we must also share his suffering." See that? So if we want to receive the glory of Hamashiach Yahushai and be joint heirs with his glory, which is plan A, right? Then, we have to be joint heirs with the sufferings and the afflictions and the persecutions of Hamashiach Yahushai, which is also part of plan A. That comes with the territory of plan A. You see that? Being joint heirs with the suffering of Yahushai in order to be joint heirs with the glory of Yahushai. See that? And there's no other way around it. Okay, there's no plan B to get to that. There's no plan C, no plan D. There's no other way. Okay? There's no other way but plan A. All right? And because as a matter of fact, even Yahushai, there was no plan B for Yahushai. All right, because when you go into the Gospels, when Yahushua was at the Garden of Gethsemane, where he basically prayed, he basically prayed to the Most High 3 times in a row. Basically, is there some other way? All right, basically, is there some other way to get back at the right hand of the Father besides going on that cross? And pretty much when you read that account in the Gospels, when Yahushua prayed to the Most High 3 times, okay, basically asking if there's some other way, the Most High Yahweh didn't answer him on neither of those 3 times. Okay, so showing you what, that even when it came to Yahushua, all right, fulfilling his lot when he walked the earth 2,000 years ago. Okay, to do the will of the Father, to be back at the right hand. There was no plan B for Yahushua. Okay, it was only plan A for Yahushua. And let's get this real quick. Matthew 20 and verse 23. It says, "And he said unto them," all right, this Yahushua speaking, "Ye shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand or on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father." All right, let's read that in the NLT. Matthew 20 verse 23 in the NLT. Yahushua told them, "You will indeed drink from my bitter cup." See that? And that's another major aspect of, plan A. All right, going through the straight gate. Okay, taking on that bitter cup from Yahushua. Okay, going through the straight gate, this straight narrow path, this difficult walk, this difficult path to the kingdom. All right, all the sufferings, all the hell, all the mockery, all the scoffing, all the pain and the headache and the labors and the toils, that we go through in this ministry as we walk in a straight gate, well, hey, that's a part of the bitter cup that Yahweh Shai has to go through. All right. And if we want to be joint heirs with Yahweh Shai's glory, we also have to take on this bitter cup, okay, and drink it down to the dregs thereof. See that? Matthew 20, verse 23 in the NLT again. Yahweh Shai told them, "You will indeed drink from my bitter cup, but I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. My Father has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen." See that? So, hey, there's no other way but to go through the baptism that Yahweh Shai went through. Okay? There's no plan B. All right? There's only plan A. Plan A is the only way. See that? And anything else outside of plan A, you trying to go up some other way. All right? So, so that's pretty much it on that. Lord willing, this video is edifying. And until next time, shalom.